IU fans, the season is off and running. The midterm elections are in the rearview mirror. The weather is getting a little colder. You can feel that crisp in the air. Indiana sitting in the top 15 and the men's and the women's game, and things are okay just for now as far as Indiana basketball is concerned. They couldn't possibly lose to Bethune-Cookman on Thursday, right? Just wait.
Why'd you have to say it like
hang,
that?
hang on. Just buckle
Why
up, folks. We'll
why'd you have to
talk.
say it like that?
We'll talk about the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats and why they might keep Mike Woodson up at night as he's preparing for this game a little later. But first, we're going to address Indiana's lopsided victory over Morehead State on opening night, where the Hoosiers showed a bunch on the court, from Trace Jackson Davis to Malik Reneau to Jalen Hood-Schifino to the overall depth on the team. It's a full-on basketball episode, folks, here on episode 271 of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage to IU sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Wednesday, November 9th, 2022, where I am your host, Nathan Christian. Here with me tonight is my normal co-host, Matt Lukens. Matt, Indiana wins 88-53. Morehead State had a 1-point lead early in the first half, a 18-17 score. Mark Freeman was lighting up the scoreboard for the Tigers, and he sat there and he said, "My gosh, is he going to go crazy?" Well, Indiana straightened things out very quickly. Hoosiers go on to win, and you know what they say: great teams cover as well. Matt, look, what were your big takeaways from IU's 88-53 victory over Morehead State?
IU has size, and then IU also doesn't need shooting this year. Wait for it. If they pass the ball well. This game, they're moving the ball very well. They didn't have to take 3-pointers. I was in a Twitter group chat the other night, and somebody asked me if Indiana was okay because there was a shot chart, or there was a notes pad of all these teams attempted this many threes, and then Indiana with 11, right? They're like, what, are we sure they fixed their 3-point shooting? And it was like, well, if you watch the game, one, all 11 3-pointers were good shots. The second thing was that we didn't have to shoot threes. Like, we were getting really good looks at the rim, regardless of us attempting 3-pointers. So it didn't really matter at the end of the day. So would I like them to see them shoot it maybe a little bit more from the outside? Maybe. I think statistically you will see that when teams can match our size. But for teams that could, like Bethune-Cookman, who we'll talk about in a minute, and teams like Morehead State that can't match Indiana's just a ridiculous length and size, Indiana's going to get all they want at the rim.
Yeah.
So again, they didn't have to do that. And I like that about this team, is that they're going to play and try to win in the way in which benefits them the most, right?
Yeah.
If attacking them from the outside benefits them the most, then we might see CJ Gunn play a little bit more. If attacking from the inside plays a little bit more, we might see Malik Reneau play a little bit more. Or Rayson Thompson play a little bit more. Like, there's different weapons we're going to see played this year, different players, different lineups based on what the other team's weakness is. And that's what makes this IU team different than last year's IU team, because this IU team last year could only play one way, and that was through Trace Jackson Davis. Okay? That was the only way. At the very end of the year, when we decided to start winning games, we found out we could also play through Xavier Johnson. But both those guys had to be involved at all times. Yeah. This team, you can beat teams without either of them having to be involved. That is what the two freshmen bring. That is what somebody like CJ Gunn brings. That's what somebody like Trey Galloway growing up and becoming a better player, and Race Thompson becoming a better floor spacer brings. This team is just more dynamic that can attack you in many different ways. And that's why IU is on the radar of so many other Big Ten and national media people, because they're seeing what we're seeing, which is that, hey, if IU can do this against by the way, preseason favorite for the conference in
Exactly.
Morehead State.
Because remember, Murray State left the Ohio Valley.
Yes.
That's allowed this opportunity for Morehead State. Again, a fairly successful mid-major / low major program. It's kind of opened the door for the Eagles, by the way, not the Tigers. I apologize to the faithful there. For the Eagles to step up and take over as preseason favorites, like you were saying.
Yeah, and so again, IU is more dynamic. I liked what I saw from the Hoosiers against Morehead State. Shout out Malik Reneau, his first real game, showed out. He's going to be one to watch for this program for quite a while. I saw some NBA draft people watch that game, and they really liked what they saw from him as well. So, I mean, hopefully they don't watch too many games the rest of the year. I'll be very sad if he has to leave early, but that'll be a good thing for the program if he ends up doing that just in the long run. But yeah, I thought, what were your thoughts on the game, Nathan, before I continue rambling?
The first thing, a lot of times with college basketball, coaches talk about depth because they have nothing else to talk about with their team. And I feel like a lot of times depth is vastly overrated when it comes to college basketball because that's sometimes a way of saying you really don't have any great players on your team. The depth on this IU roster is absurdly serious. I mean, there are 10, like Mike Woodson did not include CJ Gunn in the rotation on Thursday night. Gunn came in garbage time at the end for those 6 minutes. In the first half, it was 9 scholarship players that saw the court for Indiana. And there are going to be times where CJ Gunn gets a stretch, where Logan Duncombe gets a stretch, where Anthony Leal or Caleb Banks get a stretch. But they didn't even play in the first half. These are quality 3-4 star players that can provide a lot to a college basketball team. And Indiana there isn't any let up. You can make any substitution on the court outside of Trace Jackson Davis, and there is no let up from this team. It is level steady, and that was amazing to watch. Now, let's be fair, right? The 3 games we've seen, 2 exhibitions, and Morehead State against inferior competition. I cannot wait. I said this on our podcast before. The non-conference matchup I'm looking forward to the most as far as Indiana is concerned is the Xavier game. Because guess what? It's the first one. And I want to see what Indiana's like as maybe a 3-point favorite or 3-point underdog or pick 'em or whatever. Tough environment in Cincinnati. I think Indiana will be favored. But again, what does the depth look like against another quality conference opponent? The depth is unbelievable with this Indiana team. Malik Reneau and Jalen Hood-Schifino are poster boys for exactly how valuable an academy experience can be. Montverde has prepared them so well for college basketball. I mean, you cannot tell. They look like seniors out there and how smoothly they play. Hood-Schifino didn't even have an absurd, crazy game statistically, but there isn't a more steady guy on the court based on what we've seen thus far. Reneau continues to show up and show out on both ends of the floor. The Hoosiers, again, won 88-53. The defense, I thought, was outstanding, forcing 21 turnovers. Remember, they finished last season forcing a lot of turnovers in that win over Wyoming and in those Big Ten tournament performances. If all of a sudden Indiana can get some cheap points through the fast break, that'll be outstanding. Matt, I completely hear you as far as your 3-point shooting. That's something we can save for later. The free throws, though, a problem. And I'm curious to hear from you, Matt, of all the positives you saw on Monday night, was free throw shooting the biggest concern, or did you see perhaps something else that gave you a little pause after Indiana's season opening win?
No, free throw shooting definitely, but you got to look at who's shooting the free throws. Like Reneau and Hood-Schifino were 4 of 10. They shot 40%.
Well, and I know you're really plugged into recruiting. Was there any kind of analysis or evaluation? I'm sure that the scouts look at other things besides free throw shooting.
But no, actually,
what did they say about those 2 guys there?
Both of them are supposed to be decent free throw shooters. So I just think it was a little bit of first game nerves for the both of them at the line. just kind of overthinking it too much. You're in a stadium that you've really never. I mean, you play in like the 2 exhibition games, but it's not like for real, right? And then also in the exhibition games, there was way less people there than at the Morehead State game. Okay, there just was, right? And so again,
Assembly Hall,
that's
man.
kind of distracting and whatever. So I I'm gonna chalk it up the first game. If it continues, then it's probably a serious problem. I will say though, um, the person that's going to get the most free throws on the team is Trace. He shot 60%, which is about what he shot last year. He's 3 of 5. Probably could have shot a little bit better than that, but he's going to shoot the most free throws this year by far on the team. And the free throw shooting goes as he goes because again, he's going to be the volume shooter.
So like, I'm looking at this Indiana team, and again, overall a comprehensive win. The Hoosiers now have moved their way into, I believe, the top 10 in the KenPom ratings, which is uncharted territory as far as the Mike Woodson or Archie Miller era are concerned. Thoughts and prayers to Archie, by the way, after his Rams.
He's cursed, man. He's so
took a home loss to geographically close Quinnipiac University. Quinnipiac.
Quinnipiac, yes.
In Connecticut. Home loss for Rhode Island to start the Archie Miller era against the team it should have beat. Look, Indiana, though, also shot 61% in the season opener. That's a first, at least as far as the Mike Woodson era is concerned. Getting a field goal percentage there up and over 60%. There was very little that Morehead State could do defensively to slow down Indiana's post presence. Assembly Hall was absolutely outstanding. I thought the fans brought it. I thought the students brought it. You could tell the players noticed based on some of their post-game comments on social media. So Assembly Hall being a home court advantage for the Hoosiers will be something we keep track of, especially in that North Carolina game, folks. It's not that far away. The Hoosiers now 1-0. I'm curious, Matt. I know you're paying close attention to what you saw across the Big Ten. I mean, right now, the perception is Indiana is one of a few teams that could contend for a title. Here's my thought, right? What's holding Indiana back from frankly dominating this league this season? What's that missing piece right now that is holding Indiana back from being a Baylor or a Kansas in the Big 12 this year? What's holding Indiana back from being a Kentucky type team in the SEC or a Tennessee type team in the SEC? Or do you think that is within the realm of possibility for IU this year?
I'm going to say yes to both. I think there is something that's holding us back, but I think it's in the realm of possibility at the same time. The thing that's holding us back. Oh, sorry, I'm sick, guys. So
it's all right, man.
And I've been sick, so it's like
you're playing through it.
I know I'm gonna cough a little bit. So again, my bad. But the thing that's holding Indiana back really is Xavier Johnson's play. I think so far, when Indiana was playing well and winning really important games against really good teams last year, at the end of the year there, Xavier Johnson was an integral part of the team. And so far this year, through the 2 exhibition games and then the first game, not been great, right? He's just looked out of it. He's rushing stuff. He's just looks out of place on the court, right? And so I think we have to figure out, is it he was supposed to be previously injured coming into the year? Is he still dealing with injury stuff? Or is it something where he's lost confidence and he needs to regain his confidence? Like, whatever it is, right now, this Bethune-Cookman game and then the next game after this.
Yeah, Xavier's up after. So here we go. Xavier versus Xavier. Yeah.
He needs this game to go well, to get this confidence and get the ball rolling, because we're going to need him against Xavier. Because, again, I know Jalen Hitchfino's looked great. Trust me. I know. He's looked fantastic. We've been singing his praises or whatever, but this team goes where a senior, 5th-year player in Xavier Johnson goes, because he's the ticking clock that is this team. You know, if Jalen Hood-Schifino is the little hand, then you know the big hand is Xavier Johnson on the clock, right? The ticking clock. But you need the big hand moves more than the little hand does, right? It does more work.
Okay.
So again, I need a prime and ready Xavier Johnson back for this team. But I think it's very well within reach if he can do that. The second thing that needs to improve on this team, Nathan, hopefully I don't take away from your point, is that Race Thompson needs to be more aggressive.
So that's interesting, right? So you've talked now about potentially the connection between what Indiana is right now and what it could really be.
Mm-hmm.
Is two veteran guys stepping up. I mean,
mm-hmm.
do we think there's a chance for both of those guys to potentially lose their starting job at some point later in the season if things don't improve?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Again, I think they're better than the young guys, even when they're not being aggressive. Like they just do little things better.
Sure.
Right. But I'm talking like look for their shot. I'm talking like demand the ball. Like Race needs to demand the ball when he's open on the perimeter. Like he's looked confident in his shot. He needs to take those and he needs to make those.
Yeah.
Not only it just looks all right, it looks good. Like all right sounds like he can make a couple. It's like he looks like he looks like a guy that can definitely do 1 for 3 every single time he takes 3 shots, right? And we'll take a 33% Race Thompson from 3. Like that's good. So again, if he's open, he needs to have the confidence to shoot it. Same thing with Xavier Johnson. He's not made a 3-pointer so far this year in the 2 exhibition games in the real game. And last year he was almost a 40% shooter, if not a
well, especially shooter. Once you got into Big Ten play, there was that rough start, okay, but Big Ten play started and he elevated his game 40%.
Right. Well, we need him to elevate that game now because IU's not beating Kansas. Well, IU probably might be able to beat Kansas without him shooting threes, but you know IU's not going to beat a lot of their
Indiana this year compared to last. I mean, Indiana's in the firm conversation for a Final Four national championship run. Indiana's not trying to just make the big dance this season, and that's the different context this year where you then do ask, okay, all right, what am I getting out of Xavier Johnson? What am I getting out of Race Thompson? I mean, it's a different game the Hoosiers are playing this year.
Yeah, but if you watch the exhibitions, you watched Xavier Johnson just be not shoot it like very not confidently, right? There was no confidence in his shot. Yeah, it was very tentative, right? So again, like that's something the staff's got to figure out with him. That's something I got to figure out with Race is that Race, you can be passive all you want, but people are going to start asking questions when you're not scoring because you're a guy that not only can score, but you're the second best. You could be the second best player on this team, right? Very much could be.
Certainly could. Absolutely.
And defensively, you're you know.
The team goes where you go. He could also be 6. I mean, that's the concern.
Right. That's the concern, right? So again, he needs to prove to himself and the fans and his teammates that he's that guy, right? He needs to be that guy. And Trace is that dude. We need, I've talked about this before, but every Final Four team has 3 guys that are that dude, right? Like they go out and you can count on them to just ball out every single night. Kansas had 3 of them last year. The year before that, 3. Whatever.
You're talking about UCLA, talking about Gonzaga, right?
Right. Yes. These guys,
Jalen Suggs, Drew Timmy, that combination, exactly. Everyone, you got 3 guys.
3. They have 3. Well, we have Trace. We should have Xavier Johnson.
Heck, you even saw it with like Loyola when they made a Final Four.
Exactly. I mean, they have 3 guys. Race Thompson needs to be that 3rd dude. He does. And he gets a lot of hate in a lot of the basketball group chats I'm in because people are like, is he actually good at basketball? And I try to explain he does all the little things well, and he doesn't try to take too many shots away from Trace and the rest of the guys. But it's like I can't I've been defending him for so long. I can't defend him anymore when he has open shots in the wings and he stares at the shot and then passes it to the corner. Like, he needs to take that. He's a senior. That's his shot, right? The team needs him to be a leader, not just off the court, but on the court with his play, right? So again, Xavier Johnson and Race Thompson step up. This team has Final Four potential. If they don't, this team will still be good. This team probably still could win the Big Ten.
Right.
But they're not going to make it far in March. They need those senior leaders to step up.
Yeah, and folks, we in fact asked all of you over on the Hoosier Sound about Indiana's depth, and we asked which current bench player could actually work his way into the starting.
Which one did you say, by the way,
this season? My answer was Trey Galloway. I actually thought Trey Galloway
we have the same answer
of all the Indiana options had the best shot. Yet our thought is much different than Hoosier Nation's thought, as 56% of you said Malik Reneau. Okay, I don't think there's a chance. And again, this question is without injury, right? It's strictly based on merit and performance. I do not think there is a way that Mike Woodson starts Race, Trace, and Reneau. So he's not going to bench Trace Jackson-Davis. So it looks like the majority of you are saying, look, if there's a bench player that works his way in, it's Reneau. Thompson would come off the bench. Interesting to think of it that way. I will give shout outs, though, from Monday night to Miller Kopp and Tamar Bates. I thought both of those guys showed some improvements, showed some development. It was nice to see Kopp catch fire there for that 2-minute stretch where he dropped in 8 points, including a couple of threes. It's the kind of instant offense I think IU fans are looking for out of Kopp. And Tamar Bates, I was just thinking about this the other day, in this 18-month stretch, right, between probably, we will say like February 2021 to the end of, we'll just fast forward to like August 2022, Tamar Bates flipped from a Texas commit to Indiana, right? Because Mike Woodson called him. And then Tamar Bates was a 5-star recruit transitioning to collegiate basketball.
Right.
And, having expectations on his shoulders as a 5-star player. And then he has a baby in his freshman season at Indiana University. And he is suspended for that Northwestern game. And then he also is part of that crazy Big Ten tournament run that Indiana makes, where he gets not only those valuable experiences in the Big Ten tournament, but then wins a game in the NCAA tournament before the tough loss to St. Mary's. And finally, Tamar Bates' life is maybe slowing down just a little. And you saw him play with a serious edge against Morehead State in the minutes that he got. I was very impressed about Kopp's instant offense, as well as the intensity that Bates brought to the floor. I don't know if that's something you noticed, Matt, but if Tamar Bates becomes a problem this year, I'm all in. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I'm here for Tamar Bates to become a good player. I was kind of harping on it before the year. This team kind of goes where he kind of goes. If he has a good year, this team's gonna be really good. If he doesn't have a very good year, I have a hard time seeing how this team's going to be pretty decent. Again, he's a 5-star in his second year. He needs to be good, right, for the program to kind of succeed. And kind of show that hey, we can progress players to the next level and get them better as each year goes by. So far, so good. He looks pretty good. He looks confident. He looks a lot better than he did in the exhibition games. I know I've been told he missed the first one and he played the second one. Didn't look very good in the second one. I was told he hadn't practiced yet when he played the second exhibition. Like in a couple, weeks or whatever. So again, of course, he's going to look rusty. Looked a lot better, a lot smoother in this game. He's going to be, he came in as a good shooter. I don't think for this team he's going to be the shooter though. You got guys in Gunn who I think is going to end up being the shooter. I think Kopp is going to be the shooter.
Look, I'm
What I've
not
seen.
the
Go ahead, go
not
ahead,
the
go ahead.
Miller Cop fan club president, but he's pouring in a couple threes there. He looked good in the exhibition games as well from downtown. I'm good with that. Keep that going.
Yeah, exactly. And so I like what I saw from Miller Cop as well. I also put that I think Trey Galloway is going to end up a shooter for this team.
Ooh.
Actually, like from what I've seen for him, he's not going to shoot a ton of them, but he's going to make the ones he does take. And so again, he's just going to be a threat by just being out there. So I really like that. He's not again. Tomorrow's not going to be a shooter. He's going to be the slasher for this team, which is exactly what this team needs. It's just a guy who you give the ball to, other than Xavier Johnson, and go get the cup, go get the hole, finish, because his finishing is elite at the
Yeah.
rim. He's a very athletic guy. He's got long arms. He's got a nice touch, right? So again, that's somebody else who you can run off screens, run off curls with trace and race involved, and get the ball to. Again, makes this offense much more dynamic. I liked a lot of what I saw in the last game from Indiana's offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the Hoosiers put up 88 points. We'll see what they can come up with against Bethune-Cookman on Thursday night. We'll get to that game in a moment here. But first, it's time for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports. And we'll give a shout out to the IU women's basketball team, as we typically do in this segment once we get into basketball season.
True.
The Terry Morin led Hoosiers are off to a flying start, knocking off Vermont by 1 billion in their first game. Yarden Garzone, newcomer to this team, poured in 19
Freshman.
points, 5 of 8 from downtown. Head over to her Instagram page. You'll see some choice words for Purdue. A number of other Hoosiers got into double figures as well. Indiana shot nearly 50%, I believe 12 of 25 from three. I love seeing that in their win over the Vermont Catamounts. And now the Hoosiers have one more game coming up this week, a schedule very similar to the men's team, where you get sort of these 2 games under your belt and then a big one. And on Monday, Indiana will head to Tennessee and face the famed Volunteers women's basketball program at Pat Summit Court in Knoxville. That's going to be a top 15 matchup on ESPN2. Appointment television should be outstanding, even though Tennessee did drop their season opener to Ohio State in
State
Columbus.
last night.
And Ohio State's a team that's right there neck and neck with Indiana as far as the preseason AP Big Ten projections. So very much curious to see how Indiana and Ohio State track over the course of the season. Of course, the Big Ten favorites are the Caitlin Clark-led Iowa Hawkeyes. That should be an outstanding race in the Big Ten all season. If you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for The Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at The Hoosier Sound. If you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. And I said this before, not a big newspaper, not a big TV station. That kind of support is really how we grow and spread our enthusiasm for Indiana University sports. Matt, let's wrap up the Morehead State game. What else stood out to you as far as Indiana's 35-point win? We haven't really talked about Trace Jackson Davis all that much. He looked pretty fresh. He looked pretty rejuvenated. 15-7, had a block shot in there. He jumped a couple of Hoosier legends to become the number 13 leading scorer in Indiana University program history. What did you like from the offensive and the defensive side out of TJD? We didn't see a 3-point shot.
Yeah, we didn't see a 3-point shot. I don't even think we saw him attempt a jump shot. But he honestly didn't have to. Again, he didn't have to this game. That was not something he needed to do.
But at the same time, like, if not now, you want to test it against Xavier or North Carolina?
I mean, it's better to use it as a changeup.
Yeah, I can't
and then put it on tape. It's kind of like if you have the confidence in yourself to do it, it shouldn't really matter what the opponent is. But as far as trades goes, sorry. Honestly, I didn't really see much that impressed me nor concerned me from this game. Again, he's coming back from an injury. They were bigger than Morehead State. What I did like though was he had 2 steals, 2 assists, 0 turnovers, and a block. like he did everything this game without doing too much.
True.
He's a little bit strong on some of his layups, whatever. Usually he's a bit more efficient than 6 of 11 from the floor. It is what it is. Again, he's coming back from injury. He's got one working hand. So um, hopefully this game it looks a little bit better, and then he's at 100% full health for the Xavier game next Thursday.
Yes, make sure Mike Woodson made a comment or two earlier today, that is on Wednesday, about a sprain in Jackson Davis's wrist. So working through it, fighting through it. You certainly hope that continues to trend in the right direction here, and you can avoid missing any time. Indiana, again, folks, 1-0, sitting ninth in the KenPom ratings. I don't know if this means anything. North Carolina didn't look great. Kansas stumbled a little bit in their exhibition game against Pittsburgh State, I believe, before figuring that out. Arizona looks a little plucky. Azuolas Tubelis had an outstanding game for Arizona. Of course, the Hoosiers and the Wildcats will face off in Vegas later this year. Always fun to kind of see how other programs on your schedule do on opening night. And of course, the old friends of the program, right? You saw Rob Finney for Cincinnati drop 8 assists on Chaminade in the season opener. Clifton Moore had a decent game for Providence as they staved off an upset from Rider. Michael Durr played in a double overtime game for UCF in the season opener. In this day and age of the transfer portal, I think we all support Hoosiers that have come through this program and moved on to the next steps. It's part of the equation now. So Indiana off to a great start here, and Bethune-Cookman comes up on Thursday night. That is tomorrow night, as of our recording, likely later tonight if you're listening to this after it's uploaded. The Hoosiers and the Wildcats out of the SWAC and HBCU. That will be an 8:30 p.m. Eastern tip-off on Big Ten Network. It is the flagship pairing of Brandon Gaudin and Robbie Hummel that will call this game for BTN. The Wildcats are a KenPom 309 team, projected to finish in the bottom half of the SWAC. Nothing to see here, right? Wrong. Bethune-Cookman has a couple of high-quality guards. Joe French, who was the preseason SWAC player of the year for this season, as well as Zion Harmon, a point guard who came off the bench against Iowa, but was an elite high school recruit. Both play for the Wildcats, and they will present a lot of tough challenges for Indiana's backcourt. The Hoosiers will have a decided advantage up front. Matt, I know that Harmon and French caught your eye going back to our preseason conversations. Talk to me a little bit about both of these guards and how they'll give Indiana a bit of a test on Thursday night.
Yeah, so Zion Harmon is a former 5-star recruit. Actually, he's more than that. Zion Harmon used to be the number 1 player in his class for multiple years. This is the 2021 class, so the last class. So that includes the likes of Jalen Duran and all these other guys. He was number 1 player in that class. He stopped growing. So, when you're number 1 in 8th grade and 9th grade and 10th grade, it doesn't really matter what your height is because they're just waiting for you to hit a growth spurt. You never really hit a growth spurt, kind of peaked at 5'10", like most of us. But still was a top 40 recruit, committed to play at Western Kentucky for Rick Stansbury, where Christian Lander is now. He went there last year, had some really bad off-court issues, sat out the year, transferred to Bethune-Cookman, and so he gets to play this year. Came off the bench against Iowa, led the team in scoring, also had like 7 assists on 2 turnovers. He's a good guard. He's an elite guard for Bethune-Cookman. He's an talent. There's a level of talent, like 2 levels of talent above what Bethune-Cookman should be getting for a basketball talent. So again, if you see Zion Harmon, the last name Harmon, going off against Indiana on tomorrow night on Big Ten Network, don't be surprised. I told you. He's very, very good. And then Joe French is the other guy. he tested NBA waters last year. He's very good. Had some really good games. Believe against Seton Hall last year, he had like 25, 30
30.
against 30 against Seton Hall last year. Both these guards can go off. So again, this is not going to be a pushover, but this is a very good test for our guards against very high level shot making guards. Something that Xavier has, who will play next Thursday. So very good tune-up test. This team struggles against size, though. So again, Indiana should not be taking a ton of threes this game again. We are force-feeding Reneau when he's in. We're force-feeding Trace Jackson-Davis when he's in. And we should win through the post this game quite easily. But again, these guards, if Bethune-Cookman's within 10, to 8 points towards the end of the game, it's because their guards are going to keep the minute because they are actually extremely good talents for the level of Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah, and folks, just to be perfectly clear, Bethune-Cookman actually does not have names on the back of their jersey. So when you pay attention, it will be Zion Harmon wearing number 1, Joe French wearing number 30. Yep. The Wildcats play a 4-guard lineup to start things off, and they are led by one of the most respected names in the entire basketball world, and that is current, it doesn't change status, NBA Hall of Famer Reggie Theus, who was excellent when he played at UNLV. Theus and Woodson, that is Mike Woodson, were NBA teammates when they lived their previous lives as professional basketball players. Theus, again, a highly respected name in basketball circles, a legendary player at UNLV. Theus was just absolutely awesome when he played back in the 70s and 80s. Just one of the famous faces. They're now coaching the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. The other piece of this is that Indiana and Bethune-Cookman never faced each other. So that'll be something to look forward to here on Thursday night. I totally agree with your points, though, Matt. I mean, how many times have we seen guards come into Assembly Hall and go crazy, right? And if this is one of those instances where things can get a little nerve-wracking, it may end up being a valuable lesson for Indiana in the long run. Again, I would fully expect Indiana to win this game by 20 plus points. However, the guard test will really help the Hoosiers going forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Bethune-Cookman played Iowa in the season opener, and so Mike Woodson and Kenya Hunter and Sear Roseman and Brian Walsh, they'll be able to look at some pretty valuable tape. Bethune-Cookman on the road against the Big Ten opponent Hoosiers are familiar with. You can look at that and take valuable lessons. Bethune-Cookman lost to the Hawkeyes 89-58. Again, a lot of this is just physical disadvantage from a Bethune-Cookman standpoint. French scored just 3 points in that game. It's a little off against the Hawkeyes. However, as Matt mentioned, Zion Harmon had an excellent 15 points and 7 assists. Bethune-Cookman also heads to Northwestern and Illinois later this season, so you'll be able to see them take on a few Big Ten opponents. French, as Matt was talking about, he's someone that dropped 30 at Seton Hall last year, 25 against Liberty, a very good mid-major school where they have Darius McGee. French is going to be a problem, a 6'5" sort of combo guard. He has a career three-point percentage in the mid-40s, and he's not taking one a game. Okay, so he's someone who has all the ability to light it up from downtown. I would not be surprised. Joe French, who, again, as we said earlier, tested the NBA draft waters, if he decides to not make the leap to the pros after this season, he is very much someone I can see transfer to a high major college basketball school after this season comes to an end, if that is exactly what he is intent on doing. So the Hoosiers will get very much tested by this Bethune-Cookman backcourt. At the same time, Indiana should run away It's a fairly convincing victory. I'm looking forward to that powerhouse up front: Trace Jackson Davis, Race Thompson, Malik Reneau, making a big difference for the Hoosiers. I want to see Logan Duncombe get some run. He didn't play legitimate minutes, serious minutes against the Morehead State Eagles on Monday night. I want to see him get some run. And by the way, one last takeaway from that Morehead State game: Indiana's lineup of Jalen Hood-Schifino, Tamar Bates, Trey Galloway, Jordan Geronimo, and Malik Reneau graded out as by far Indiana's best lineup against
That's the backups.
Something interesting with Jalen Hood-Schifino in there, right? Kind of interesting to think about. And in this game, Matt, the bench will play a major role helping the Hoosiers get a comfortable win.
In every game the rest of the year, the bench will have a major part in IU success. Like IU starting lineup's job is to go even, because the bench in every single game will go positive, right? And at the end of the day, in the minutes that the bench goes positive for every minute they play, they're gonna quickly, build up a lead, and then Indiana can play from ahead, which means that they can do certain things out there, like play through the post and play slow and kind of work the ball around. There's going to be some ways that Indiana is going to beat some teams, and actually some high major teams. They're probably going to beat them easier than Morehead State, because what they're going to do is they're just going to drown them out in just waves and waves and waves and waves of talent. I was talking to people around the Big Ten again about IU, and they're like, holy crap, this Geronimo kid's good. I'm like, I know, but Geronimo's like our third best power forward on this team. They're like, yeah, I guess, like, I'm kind of looking at it like, you're kind of right. And then I'm like, oh yeah. And then, Tamar Bates is our third best small forward on this team. They're like, yeah, you're kind of right. And I'm like, CJ Gunn, our best shooter, is barely getting playing time in garbage time against Morehead State. And they're like, yeah, you're kind of right. Like, Indiana goes like 12 deep. Heck, Caleb Banks looked decent when he came out in garbage time against Morehead State. Like, the 13th guy.
Technically, facts only, Caleb Banks outscored Xavier Johnson on Monday night.
Right, exactly. Our 13th guy on this team is either Caleb Banks or Anthony Leal. There's not a lot of teams in the country whose 13th guy is either a top 90 player from last year's class, freshman, or a former Indiana Mr. Basketball hometown kid 3-point shooter. Like, that's our 13th dude on this roster. It's crazy to me. And again, Logan Duncombe, did he even play?
He did. Very limited minutes right at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar rotation to Gunn.
He barely played, and I was told he had a fantastic offseason. So I'm sitting here like, I just like the way that this team can attack teams in multiple different ways. There's different personnel that will come in throughout the year, and play major minutes. Again, like we saw Anthony Leal play last year. We didn't really think he would play it all last year. We saw him play in some very important games. I'm assuming CJ Gunn and Logan Duncombe and Caleb Banks are going to do the same kind of thing this year with it. And Anthony, aforementioned Anthony Leal, they're going to come in and play in some games that, look, we may not expect them to play. For instance, against North Carolina, we might need shooting. We might see Anthony Leal out there.
You certainly could. I would not be shy. Xavier, yeah, you name it.
Yeah, like you could see these guys come in and play some minutes, and that's what I love about the staff is they're not afraid to like try something. They're very afraid to apparently change the starting lineup. That's why I'm very certain that the starting lineup is not going to change, no matter how good Reneau is, no matter how good Trey Galloway or Tamar Bates plays, because they're going to love bringing them off the bench. What does matter, though, is how they finish the game. And I can't wait to kind of see at Xavier, what's the finishing lineup? How is IU going to squeak out a close game? Because I know they're going to get one against Bethune-Cookman. We might get one against Xavier, but we certainly will get one. If we don't get one against Xavier, we're certainly going to get one against North Carolina.
We're going to have boots on the ground for that Xavier game coming up a week from Friday as Mr. Matt over here is going to cover that game for us and see Indiana win by 58 points against the Musketeers. It's time for a social media shout out before we jump into our prediction for this Indiana Bethune-Cookman contest. And as part of our social media shout out here, we are going to tip our cap to all the Hoosiers who signed on the dotted line today. From a men's basketball standpoint, we all saw Gabe Cupps put his name officially on that national letter of intent. Cupps, who you can find on Instagram at gcups23, that's Cupps, where he has 380,000 followers. Cupps showed footage, photos as well of him signing at Centerville High School in Ohio. Cupps will probably take over for that Xavier Johnson spot next season. And of course, if Jalen Hitchafino moves on to the next level, then there will be quite a bit on Cup's plate in his true freshman season for the Hoosiers next year. But that will be about a year away, a year down the road, as Indiana continues to push forward here in this 2021-22 basketball season. Just kidding, it's 2022-23 basketball season. My calendar's all messed up. A quick reminder for all of you, as far as our social media is concerned, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube at Indiana HQ, as well as at the Hoosiers Sound. On Instagram, where we just crossed 1,000 followers. Man, let's go. You can't find us at Indiana HQ, but what can you find us at on Instagram?
Indiana.HQ.
Exactly. And join the masses who have joined us over on Instagram. We'll have footage from all the different sites this year for Indiana men's basketball as the Hoosiers try to make a run deep into the NCAA tournament. Please join if you have not yet. And if you have, tell a friend, tell a stranger, tell a classmate, tell a neighbor. Really doesn't matter as long as they care about Indiana University sports. And look, all the Twitter rules are changed now. So, we are there no matter what happens. So you can believe in us. Matt, look, there is actually no line right now as far as the Vegas line is concerned on DraftKings Sportsbook. But of course, Indiana is projected. They're projected to win by 1 million here. Before we give a prediction, though, what are you expecting to see? How are you expecting this game to play out on Thursday night? It will be on BTN, by the way, for the folks who are curious. Not on the subscription service. It will be on Big Ten Network Thursday night, 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah, I don't have to stream it on Twitch this time. That was an interesting take. Yeah, so as far as Thursday night goes, I'm assuming IU probably covers. I think they're favored by like 25, right? 30?
Yeah, if we look at the KenPom projections, Indiana's supposed to win 85-56, so a 29-point victory.
Yeah, I would say over on that. I think Indiana's going to have a smooth time beating this team just because they're going to get what they want down the whole time.
And as I look at it, I'm just curious to see how French as well as Harmon play for Bethune-Cookman. Reggie Theus knows what he's doing. Again, he's got that NBA experience as a former player. Now the head coach at Bethune-Cookman. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of an early test from Bethune-Cookman before the Hoosiers pull away. It's time, though, Matt. Let's dive in here. Your prediction for this contest. Who wins this game and by how much?
Again, I alluded to it, Indiana by like 30.
There you go. Indiana's going to win this one by 30, according to Matt. I'm a little bit more pessimistic. I think Indiana wins it by like a 20-ish number. So like a 73-52 type of score. I think that's what you're going to see here at Assembly Hall on Thursday night. I could also see Indiana maybe withholding just a little bit from a play sheet standpoint before this big matchup against Xavier, which comes up a week from Friday. And of course, we will have everything you need to know for that matchup on our next podcast coming up on Monday night. As we wind down, Matt, zooming out here, Indiana basketball doing what they had to do, starting off 1-0, no nerves, no stress, no anxiety in the season opener. What are your final thoughts here as we wrap up on this Wednesday night?
Oh, we're wrapping up already? We have another sport that we play, right?
Women's basketball.
Oh.
Great soccer program.
That's not what I was talking about.
Great soccer program.
Indiana Hoosiers.
Big Ten tournament semifinals coming up against
Ohio State in Columbus on Saturday.
Tom Allen's a head coaching candidate in South Florida, technically, apparently, according to the Tampa Bay Times.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it. IU's still going to lose. Apparently, there's supposed to be some freaky weather on Saturday.
There is, yes, all across the Midwest, correct?
All across the Midwest, but especially in Columbus.
Yeah.
So again, IU doesn't have a shot, but I would like to pretend that they do, so that I can continue to hurt myself by watching that game. Yeah, Tom Allen's a head coaching candidate. We could do a 7-episode podcast just on the state of the IU football team.
Sure.
But we're not going to do that right now. So anyways, to wrap up, football team will lose on Saturday.
What?
Basketball team will win tomorrow, and then hopefully win next Friday when I'm in attendance in Cincinnati, probably sitting in the back of a room watching a TV in a stadium. But anyways, I am very excited to see this basketball team. Everything I've seen so far has given me a lot of confidence in everything that we've talked about in the offseason. And I can't wait to come out to a basketball game in Assembly Hall and feel Assembly Hall back again. There are some people, mainly Anthony Lilo on Twitter, talking about how the student section needs to be moved down a bit. I don't mind that a lot. I actually think that's a great opinion. My solution for that was actually, I don't even know if you thought about this, Nathan, was that, you have on the home side of the court, it's like on the left, all the way down to the left by the left basket, or the east basket,
Mm-hmm.
talking directions.
Mm-hmm.
That they have the giant, student section that goes up through the corner. Well, they should do that on the other side, on the away side, behind the home bench,
right,
for the student fans.
Yeah.
So that way they're on opposite sides of the court from each other, and they're on next to the two baskets. That way, teams aren't having an easier time over by one basket because it's the alumni section, and then the other side because it's that's the student section side. Like, the student section should be split close to the court on both sides, and hopefully IU kind of gets that memo. They're probably not going to do it this year, but maybe going into future years they'll get that memo.
Yeah, and I understand it's not an easy conversation because there are funds that come from sitting boosters and donors, and all of them closer to the basket. And Scott Dolson, the good news is he's got the background, right? He knows what life is like as a Hoosier, being part of the program for decades now. So he'll have a finger on the pulse of the situation.
I feel like, for instance, you could take away the student section from behind the backboard next to the band and make that like sold seats, and then move those people up into the the regular stands on the other side and make that other part a student section, and then bring a little bit of the students down for the balcony. I feel like you could do that, but that's just me.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on here if Indiana's athletic department makes a move. But as far as I'm concerned, thinking about the basketball team, with a 1-game sample size across college basketball, Indiana's just as capable of any team as winning a national title this year, folks.
Yeah, we're up there.
They really are. Yeah. And I don't know if everyone's quite aware of that yet. There's no super team in college basketball. There's no dominant force. We did not see Duke have Dariq Whitehead and Derek Lively on the court. Maybe those two guys step up like crazy, and John Shire's got a juggernaut in his first year. I'm not sure, but barring the Blue Devils and maybe a full strength Kentucky, but I don't even think that gets it. I mean, it is a wide open season, again, just based off of 1-game sample size. But Indiana is very capable of cutting down the nets when it's all said and done.
Yep.
Just do on that for a little bit, folks. Just do on that for a little bit. Beat Bethune-Cookman, though. that about wraps it up for our 271st show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we will see you next time.
Peace and love. Go Hoosiers.